So welcome everyone to Club 17, our members, our prospective members, and our guests. We have a Northern Kentucky mayor, a banker, a special agent coming to speak to the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. That sounds like a bad joke, doesn't it? But it's true. They're here to speak to us about how to keep us safe on the internet. And this is a be careful what you wish for moment. I've said to several presidents over the last several years, when we have these panels, make sure you give me plenty of time to be able to have a great conversation. So Steve King, our current president, in his infinite wisdom says, okay, Doug, you're gonna run the whole meeting, and therefore it's up to you to make sure that you have enough time. Exactly. So kicking us off, the Star-Spangled Banner, Bill Stilley and Kay Atkins. Bill? Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Kay. Leading our four-way test and invocation, former President Uta Popke.
Thank you, President-to-be, Doug. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, I thank you for the most excellent three speakers we have here today in this beautiful location. Thank you for enabling members of this club to support so many local and international projects. Camp Allen, which caters to the handicapped, was started in 1921 and is still recognized for its excellence in all-inclusive care. Give us the wisdom and the energy to continue our many projects which are beneficial to all concerned. Amen. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Seats. And Bill Stilley is going to welcome our guests. Bill?
I hope I'm not wilting as bad as the mic is today. Good afternoon. What a glorious day to be a part of Cincinnati Rotary Club 17, the 17th oldest Rotary Club in the universe. We are really blessed today to have quite a few guests and potential members. As I read your name, if you would, please stand up so that we might recognize you. Brooke Barker is a guest of Lisa Lickert. Welcome. Chris Warner with Lifetime Financial is a guest of Michael Schatzman. Kwame Amoa with the University of Cincinnati is a guest of Doug Bolton. I'm a little confused by these next two guests of Jack Scott, Sarah Westendorf and Kelly Snyder with the FBI. I'm confused. Did you escort Jack here? Is there an issue we need to know about? Steve Mercurio is a visiting Rotarian from Asheville, North Carolina. Tom Breitenbach, retired from Graydon, is a guest of Brett LaBar. Mark Hoffman, also a guest from Michael Schatzman, is with Edward Jones. Welcome. Welcome to Rotary.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, Jack. Awesome, thank you. Welcome, Mark. So thank you always to all of our meeting sponsors, and this week's meeting sponsor is Magnified Giving, represented by its Executive Director, Kelly Collison. Kelly?
Thanks, Doug. President-elect Doug, President of the Day, Doug. Thanks. What is your why? It's true. My name is Kelly Collison, and I do serve as the Executive Director of Magnified Giving and Camp Give. And as such, it's my responsibility to provide youth philanthropy education and service learning opportunities to the youth of our region. We do this through a variety of programs, hosting collaborations between the community's businesses, schools, and nonprofits. We create an energy in the community that is empowering and lasting when implemented with young, hopeful, inspired, and knowledgeable voices at the table. So what is your why? Our why is to educate, inspire, and engage those youth in philanthropy and service so they can become you. We provide real dollars to young people and challenge them to choose a nonprofit organization that fits in alignment with their why, their purpose. And when we do so, we create stronger, more knowledgeable leaders. They're more self-confident, and they are mentally healthier, which is super important right now specifically. So if you want to magnify your giving and you're supporting local nonprofits, let's teach the next generation together. Check us out, magnifiedgiving.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. We have two new members we are introducing. So Pete and Chris, if you'd come on up and hold right there to save some time, I'm going to go down and do the second new member introduction that's being done by our somewhat immobile Charles Pierce. Charles?
How are you? Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead and introduce Emil.
Pardon? Oh, sorry. I thought they were first.
We're going to do you first.
Okay. I would like all of you to meet Emo Brown. I've only known him for a few months, but he's from the West Indies, from Antigua and Barbuda, which is close to Barbados, which I'm very familiar with. He was the youngest of 9 children, and he learned the value of serving others. It's real funny. When I first met him, one of the questions I asked, what made you think of Rotary? And he said, I can help more people. Huh? That sounds like service above self to me. He immigrated to Cincinnati in '94 at age 16, became a U.S. citizen 24 years later in 2018. During this time, he earned his Bachelor of Degree of Accounting, Masters of Business Administration, and was inducted into the College Soccer Hall of Fame. He's worked as a hospitality industry for a number of years as a business manager and as chief financial officer of a 5-star resort in Antigua. Wow. While living in Antigua, he married the love of his life. And this is a story which I'm going to follow with because he gave her engagement ring in a squash ball, because he was an eminent squash player. And the truth is, squash, you get more hits on the ball than any sport. You get a lot of, you get in shape. I played 50 years of squash, and I know that back then I was in shape. Not now. Anyway, he gave her their wedding ring inside of a squash ball, which means he proved it's the truth because he loved her. It was fair because that's who he wanted to marry, and then you want to be sure that she saw this. Did it build goodwill and better understanding? Absolutely. And it's been beneficial to all concerned. They're still married, and they have 2 children. As a matter of fact, his youngest son, I gave him, when I first met him, one of the books by Bruce Meadows of the Wild Animals. We all know Bruce Meadows from here, and we all know the book. And this 4-year-old boy loves it, just loves it. He's held various financial positions and sales positions in his quest to becoming a business owner. In 2020, recently, he started AMSJ International, a thriving grocery and retail goods to resorts and luxury yacht owners so they can one time get all the groceries they're going to need for the week travel, wherever they're at the Caribbean they are. Obviously enjoys watching soccer, tennis, and other professional sports. He runs to stay in shape. And another fact that really hits home is his statement of, after God, his family is his highest priority. Emil Brown. A new gem.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles. I'll let you pin him while we're getting the next new member introduction from Pete Armstrong, a very special new member.
Thank you, President-elect Doug. It's a surprise to have you up here today, but it's a nice surprise. I wanted to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank President Steve. I wanted to thank him publicly for your year of service. It's been a great year. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Rotarians, friends, and guests. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you today the most recent member that I have sponsored, Chris Moyer. I met Chris in 2009 when he developed a relationship with my stepdaughter, Renee. I was impressed with Chris at an early point, but I didn't let on, as I needed to see if the character traits he was demonstrating were consistent over time. Thoughtful, deliberate, patient, and steady. Cool, calm, and collected, yet warm and affable. These qualities he displayed over his courtship and into their marriage, building a strong and loving relationship. From this relationship came 2 wonderful grandchildren to Christy and me. We are blessed. A few months ago, I brought Chris to our meeting when the CEO of Procter & Gamble spoke. At the end of the meeting, Chris said, "This is amazing. How do I get to be a part of this?" Thus began our membership process. Me at the registration table since. Chris grew up in Loveland and graduated from Loveland High School. He began work at Anthem Health Insurance 20 years ago. While working full-time, he attended Northern Kentucky University and graduated with a degree in computer science. This triple dedication, job, and education demonstrates his drive and relentlessness to achieve his goals and dreams. Seeing what we do through service above self fits into his vision of improving our community and world one small step at a time. Chris is a rabid Bengals fan, a dedicated bowler with a respectable average, and an avid golfer. Another endearing and charming aspect is that each evening, as he puts his small children to bed, he asks them each, "What was the best part of your day? It's difficult." He provides them with an opportunity to share their joys and have someone who cares listen to their concerns. Don't we all need someone like that in our lives? A fine gentleman that I'm proud to have as my son-in-law and a fellow Rotarian. Welcome, Chris Moyer.
Thank you, Pete, and welcome, Chris. Or 8. Who is the winner? Awesome, right down here in front. And right here, Christy, right down here, right down here. And now you get to choose from the queen, to see if we can choose the Queen of Hearts from the deck for the big pot. Sorry about your luck. We'll get to do it again next week. A couple quick announcements. Rotary dues are due today. If you have mailed the check or would like to set up monthly installment payments, please let Christy know that you've mailed the check or that you'd like to set up those monthly installments. June 20th is our next neighborhood coffee at Mom M's Coffee from 8 to 10. Our next Rotary Euchre is June 27th at Molly Rydell's house. Thanks, Molly, for hosting. And save the date for July 5th, which is our next happy hour from 4:30 to 6:30. And please make an RSVP in DAC DB. June 23rd, the next Rotary After Hours at Uda and Hans Papke's house. Committee meetings this week. We have membership development right after this in Salon E on the 4th floor. And your board of directors is meeting at the Metropolitan Club in Covington starting at 2 p.m. All right, Chuck Martz, come on forward and let's do the World Affairs Basket raffle. This is a donation by the International Service Committees, including World Affairs, Youth Exchange, Rotary International Foundation. Last week's basket helped us raise another $280. So Chuck, take it away.
All right, very good. Thanks, soon-to-be President Doug. And thanks to everyone for your donation. We raised $630 today. So we're going to do 2 drawings. We're going to do, so each ticket has 2 chances to win. We're going to do a blue basket first, and then the pink basket next. So, Uda, you look super honest sitting over there. You get to pull. Thank you. Yep, and just okay, read this one first. So this is for the blue basket. It is 941107. 941107. Oh, awesome, Don. Okay, here comes the next one. It is 941127. All right, very good. So you get the pink basket, Dan. Thanks very much, everybody. $630.
Great job, Chuck, and thank you, everyone, for participating in that. Our program today is brought to you by the Corporate Member Roundtable, Kelly Collison. is going to introduce our speakers. Just real quickly about the Corporate Member Roundtable. Thank you, all 21 corporate members who contribute to this great group of thinkers about how to get engagement, volunteering, service embraced in their company. We welcome other Rotarians who are parts of companies that might be interested in becoming members of the Corporate Membership Roundtable. We'd love to talk to you about that, as well as if you have other folks who you think would fit that mold of becoming part of the Corporate Member Roundtable. Please see Kelly Collison, Jack Scott, Brett Labar, and Melinda Kelly, our coordinators of our Corporate Member Roundtable. Kelly, take it away.
Thank you again, double duty today. Thank you so much. I'm a proud corporate member, and it's a lot of fun to bring unique panels like this with fabulous topics, so we'll get right to it. Cybersecurity, how secure are we? This is the topic of today's panel discussion, brought to you by the Rotary Club of Cincinnati's Corporate Member Roundtable. Thanks to the committee in creating interesting panel discussions on timely topics for all of us. I represent the committee today, but there are a lot of people involved, especially Jack Scott, Brett Labar, Bob Will, Cheryl Parker, Melinda Kelly, Doug Bolton, among many who serve on the Corporate Member Roundtable Committee. So we want to hear from our expert panelists. From hacks to attacks, they'll share how to navigate cybersecurity concerns professionally and personally as an increasing number of cyber crimes make the news and threaten our safety every day online. Let's meet our experts now. Please welcome Dave Hatter. Dave is an accomplished, enthusiastic, award-winning technology professional and servant leader with more than 30 years of software development, cybersecurity, and project management experience. He's written or contributed to 12 technology books, written more than 100 technology-related articles, and has been quoted in publications including the Wall Street Journal, Money, MSNBC, Salon, Reader's Digest, MSN, Business Leader, among many others. Dave is currently the WLW Cyber Expert. Dave believes in community service and has served as mayor of Fort Wright, Kentucky since 2015, after serving 8 terms on the Fort Wright City Council. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's loud. Thanks.
And Mr. Mick Cooney. Mick is a regional executive in treasury management at PNC. His sales team provides working capital management and fraud solutions for commercial banking-sized clients across Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Mr. Cooney has 37 years of banking experience, including operations, treasury management, relationship management, merchant services, and public finance. He has a bachelor's degree from Northern Kentucky University and has held his certified treasury professional designation since 1995. Among his many community service engagements, Mick is the past president of the Southwest Ohio Association of Financial Professionals, current board member of the Alexandria Fire District, member volunteer of St. Mary's School Boosters, and is the sport announcer for Bishop Brossart High School. Welcome, Mick.
Thank you. Go Mustangs.
And Special Agent Todd Vokas has spent his entire FBI career on Cincinnati's Cyber Task Force, first as an intern while studying here at Xavier University, and then as a digital forensic examiner with the Computer Analysis Response Team. In February of 2020, he reported to new agent training at Quantico and was assigned back to the Cincinnati Cyber Task Force, which is very unusual, I learned, talking to Todd, as a cyber agent. Special Agent Vokas works mainly on cyber criminal investigations to include international botnets, cyber criminal forums, and a fraud scheme targeting major financial institutions around the world. Welcome, Special Agent Vokas.
Thank you.
All right, so for now, they're Dave, Mick, and Todd. Thank you for participating in our Corporate Member Roundtable. We appreciate your time and your expertise to share this important information with the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. Let's get to it. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Kelly. So quick lightning round on some questions that they have no idea that I'm going to ask. So iPhone or Android? Todd? Shout it out.
As
employee of the federal government, I'm not allowed to promote one product over another. So if there are any questions
Very
along those
good.
lines,
Very good. Stumped me on my first question. Mick, iPhone or Android?
iPhone. We're an all iPhone family.
Dave?
Apple all day.
All the way. All right. Your preferred browser, and this might be a little bit of some guidance here for folks. What is your preferred web browser? Todd?
I do use Chrome from time to time. I'm not
Okay.
promoting that product.
That's not a promotion. That's not a promotion. So, all right.
Chrome. I bet you can guess, Doug, that I don't use anything from Google ever. So Firefox or Brave.
Very, very good. And I guess this is actually the last question, but I think it's actually the first question that we should talk about, because I think everyone here in the room has either kids or grandkids that are beginning to surf the net, beginning to do things digitally. And I'd like to talk about them first in terms of what you all would recommend in terms of keeping those kids, keeping those grandkids safe. What kind of guidance do you have in this wide west world that we're living in? Dave, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I would suggest you start with Todd, because I suspect I'm going to say what he said. Honestly, this mic's kind of, that's better? Yeah, I think that's a little better. Honestly, the FBI is a great resource for lots of tips to keep your kids safe. Sextortion is a major problem. You got all kinds of spoofing and stuff going on out there. The Internet Crime Complaint Center. Again, I don't want to steal all Todd's thunder here, but I think, as a parent of 4 kids myself and one who's still a teenager, you need to know what they're doing. You need to keep an eye on their devices. You need to have access to their devices. And you need to warn them about the continuous steady stream of threats that take place out there, because it's really easy. Unfortunately, there are companies that make apps that help you hide other apps. So when you look at their phone and you see the flashlight app, inside there is TikTok or whatever else. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of predators and bad people out there who will prey on your children, either to extort them or for, worse purposes. So, again, Todd's probably got better information than me, straight from the horse's mouth, but you got to stay on it.
All right, Todd? Since he's queued you up, let's go to you.
He answered most of those questions pretty well. Yes, it's true, and violent crimes against children, or VCAC, which is a violation that the FBI investigates, historically was on the Cyber Squad, which I am a member of, but that's now transitioned to a violent crime squad, and they're usually the ones to give a presentation about something like this, because they see that every day. They know exactly what apps are trending right now with kids and methods used by these actors in order to, exploit children. But from a regular generic cyber agent perspective, well, I'm not up to date on all of that, and it's constantly changing. I do know that when I've been asked this question before, I often talk about some of the developments that I think a lot of these major manufacturers are putting in place, where there's parental controls constantly being added to some of these devices. And I know, I have my mother-in-law gives all of the grandchildren iPads at a certain age, and there are features I'm already promoting a product here. There's features on an iPad, that allows you to lock that device down, limit some of the applications that are available, and while we're talking about child exploitation, I constantly hear stories of parents getting billed $1,000 because their kid spent, they didn't have that device locked down, and they bought 100 Roblox or whatever it is, Roblox, and that can also happen. So from a very dramatic angle, yes, there's a lot that can be done to monitor your kids' activities online, and there's software out there that does those sort of things to keep you in the loop on what their activities are. And then from a very simple perspective, lock those devices down so they're not able to make purchases.
Mick, do you have anything to add?
Not a lot to add, really. The perspective that I'm bringing to this panel really is from the banking sector and the financial business sector. But as a parent with 4 children, we've utilized those parental controls, and we all have Apple devices and have utilized those. So that was the approach that we took, and that was really just as a parent.
Okay, so let's go. Any follow-up questions to the kids before we move into the consumer and business practices? Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the industry, but this is a question as a parent. My kids are older teenagers, about to start having credit reports and credit histories of their very own. What do I need to do to make sure that their identities have not been stolen, or that they're starting out clean and somebody else hasn't already taken my, because I've heard about minors and their identities being stolen by family members as well as by outside entities.
Great question.
Actually had trouble hearing or understanding.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
There is a protection for minors from Identity Theft Act. I don't know the exact name of it, but how do I make sure that my kids' identities are safe at this point before they start being responsible for it on their own?
Sorry, so is the question when should a child be responsible for keeping their own identity safe? Is that the? How does he protect his kids? How does he know if that? Oh, how do you? That's difficult. I understand there are obviously, tools out there and ways to get identity protection on your children. And if as soon as they start creating accounts, I would utilize a service that will monitor any passwords they're using, any addresses email addresses they're putting in to create those accounts, their cell phone number. Those can be implemented into monitoring identity monitoring software that should be able to identify anything like that.
What age do you suggest be the youngest that a child be given a smartphone?
25.
Follow-up questions on the kids' questions. All right. Yes, Mick.
Well, I was just going to say, and again, this is the parent perspective. We got devices for our kids starting at about 13, right? When you needed to communicate, when you were dropping them off at places and you needed to make sure you were able to get in touch with them. But again, I think leveraging some of the parental controls will help mitigate some of the risks to letting them have a personal device.
Yeah, I would say the same thing because, again, younger kids myself. The big thing, and Todd mentioned this before, is, the threat landscape out there constantly changes. It's hard to stay in front of your kids in terms of whatever the latest and greatest thing is. And, I think there's a ton of useful resources out there, whether it's the FBI, the FTC, or reputable organizations like CNET, ZDNet, Tom's Guide. There's all kinds of online resources that have useful tips that can help you if you're not a nerd like me, and even if you're in the business, it's really hard to stay in front of this stuff. So I would say, start like with the FBI website and then leverage these other resources, and that'll help you answer these questions for yourself, figure out how to take advantage of things like parental controls, if that makes sense for you, and just you'll be a lot more educated and it'll make it easier for you to deal with these kind of things.
All right. Josiel, yes, hold on.
Okay, we're talking about kids, we're talking about platforms, social media. What's your reaction to TikTok?
I'll go.
Go ahead,
I was just asked this question 2 days ago when I was presenting somewhere else. Someone said, my daughter has downloaded TikTok. She says everything's fine. My husband refuses to look at TikTok. My daughter will send me a TikTok. I will view that TikTok on my phone, but I don't have an account. Where exactly are the issues here? Is my husband right? Is my daughter right? Which one's correct? And I think that comes down to understanding exactly how TikTok functions, and that is a lot of the information that TikTok gathers, like most applications do, is on servers overseas in a country that some people, a lot of people have concerns about. And I think if you're all right with your information being over on servers in another country where it might be being used for something you're not necessarily in approval of, but you're content with that, and you don't think that country, knowing that you like to watch cat videos, is that important to you, then I would say you're all right using TikTok. we at work are advised to not use it. So those are my 2 cents, you know, and you can take that information as you will.
You want to take a crack before I drop a bomb?
So I don't use TikTok, and I've asked my kids not to use TikTok. However, the older ones do. And you know, I've warned them about some of the security concerns as well as the data sharing that they're doing. And I mean, that's all I can do as a parent is advise them, right? But I'm not a fan of the app.
Thanks for that softball there, Joe Seal. I despise TikTok. I think it's one of the worst apps ever created. It's been banned by numerous states, by the federal government. And I think they just recently said contractors can't use it now. Numerous countries have banned it. And you know, I agree with everything that Todd said. Your data is going to servers in China. It's well documented through leaked audio and research that the Chinese Communist Party has access to your data. And I know people say, well, why do I care if you watch cat videos? It goes a lot deeper than that. We don't have time to get into it here. But if you're not concerned about the privacy aspects, I would encourage you to check out the propaganda aspects of it. Look up the heating feature. Forbes did a feature on this recently. The app has built-in capabilities so that the people controlling the app can make anything they want go viral. So you think the algorithm decides because you like cat videos, you're seeing whatever you're seeing. It goes way deeper than that. So yeah, I would encourage you to delete TikTok and smash whatever device it was on and get a new one. Thanks, Joe Seal.
Okay, so
Sound advice.
yes. All right. So out of the kid vein. So So now scare us. What are some of the newest and most common ways businesses and consumers are getting hacked?
So I'll just share what we're seeing. You know, one of the more prevalent means of cyber attack, if you will, is through a business email compromise. So maybe just a little bit more background. So my team supports businesses, specifically in the 10 to 50 million space, but you know, across all businesses, we're seeing, you know, just a huge influx of attempts, incoming emails into businesses, and sometimes it's emails that look like they're from legitimate trading partners, could just be spoofed emails, but an influx of emails coming in trying to get somebody within that company to take action. And specifically, we're seeing lots of attempts coming into accounts payable, treasury departments, trying to get them to change the payment instructions. And unless there is diligence around confirming those payment instructions, a lot of these businesses, you know, their AP clerk is just changing the payment instructions, and now suddenly, you know, they're sending an ACH, which is an automated clearinghouse payment, electronic payment, or a wire transfer, or sometimes even a check, to a bad actor. And so that's probably one of the more prevalent scams or attempts that we're seeing coming in. The other big one is just malware attempts. So again, emails coming into a business, trying to get an employee to click onto a link, right, and to install some sort of software onto their business server or onto an application. And you know, the reasons for that could be multiple. It could be to, you know, install some key logging software to take a look at usernames and passwords. It could be to steal data. All different reasons for that installation of the malware. But those are the two bigger ones that we see, Doug.
Todd, what are you seeing as the most common?
Sure, and this might be, you know, biased because this is an actual investigation that I'm working, and Mick might have heard of this threat actor. But so Cincinnati Division has an open investigation on a cyber threat actor referred to by originally Fifth Third Bank as Ivan. They've recently been identified in a prominent cybersecurity blog as Disneyland Team, and what their scheme is to essentially trick unsuspecting corporate banking clients into putting their legitimate credentials into a fake banking login portal, and they direct the victims there through the use of fraudulent Google advertisements. So how does this work? you open up your Chrome browser, go to Google, and you type in, for example, and I'm going to use Fifth Third here just because I know their corporate login page. I could use PNC Pinnacle, but I'll use Fifth Third, for example. So Fifth Third Express is their corporate client login portal. You type that in, maybe you're served with an advertisement that you're just clicking the first link that appears. You're not necessarily paying attention to it. So these bad guys have paid or are actively paying, because Google only charges you per click, to promote a lookalike link to Fifth Third Express. Although when you click on that advertisement, which Google puts at the top of the results, when you click on that advertisement, it redirects you to a web page that looks identical to Fifth Third Express's login page. You then put your credentials in there, and the bad guy gets them. Now, there's a lot more to this. There's obviously two-factor authentication that a lot of banks require to mitigate this type of activity, and Ivan, Disneyland team, has in place ways of getting around that, whether it be the capabilities of serving you with a splash screen, like a pop-up that says, hey, we're sending you a text, put in the 6-digit number that you're receiving right now, and they're able to steal your two-factor authentication that way. But they are very, very organized, and they have other means where they're able to call you directly, spoofing Fifth Third's IT number, for example, and essentially social engineer you into providing additional information, or maybe even having an executive that has the rights to approve an ACH come and put their credentials into the same fake page. Again, this is very high-level view overlook of what exactly the scam is, and there's lots of infrastructure that's used to create or to perform this crime, but that's something that I'm seeing a lot of, and almost every major FI in the United States has been hit by it, and a lot of them overseas in Europe as well.
Dave, anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, we see out in the field a lot of the same things. Business email compromise is huge. I'll tell you a real-world story here in a second. And then secondarily, ransomware and these sort of man-in-the-middle attacks that Todd's talking about, all huge problems. I mean, we see this stuff every day. And honestly, one of the reasons why I was excited to come today is to have someone from the FBI tell you what they're seeing out there in the field. Because everyone says, oh, Dave, you're a nut. Joe Seal will tell you, tinfoil hat nut, freely admitted, right? And you're just trying to sell me something. But you're dealing with people who are out there, or even Mick from the bank side, where the people are getting hit with this stuff. I mean, this is a real thing. It's happening every day. So they mentioned I'm the mayor of Fort Wright. Terrible job. Can't wait till I'm done, by the way. But, we get these kind of attacks all the time. At one point back in 2016, the city clerk got an email that was spoofed, looked like it came from my email account, asked how much money was in the checking account. She replied, happened to be $4 million that day. So, of course, the scammers are like, cha-ching, I got a live one here, right? And then, of course, they came back immediately, said, well, I need you to do a wire transfer, one international wire transfer and one domestic wire transfer. And thank God, because I am a tinfoil hat nut and I'm constantly screaming about this stuff, she's like, something doesn't feel right about this. Why would the city of Fort Wright do an international wire transfer? And that's a big part of the defense to this. A lot of it's not technological. It's being aware that these kind of scams are rampant and stopping and saying, something doesn't feel right about this. And thankfully, she picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, Dave, what is this wire transfer thing about? And at that point, obviously, we were able to stop it. But had she not called me, I mean, who knows how much money could have been stolen? And Todd, tell us, how likely are you to get that money back if you don't catch it right away?
It's more difficult as time goes on. Obviously, if you catch it within a few days, you're fine, but...
So, yeah, I mean, everything they said is the kind of stuff we're seeing every day. Recently had a customer refer to us where they're out almost $1 million because of business email compromise. They were able to get in someone's mail, lurk around in there, send out fraudulent invoices to legitimate customers. The customers paid these invoices believing they were real because they looked real to the naked eye. Almost $1 million out, gone.
So what safeguards can we employ as businesses and consumers to just completely avoid this stuff? We can't just stop using the internet, right? So how can we keep ourselves safe?
Well, there is no way to completely avoid it, right? I mean, and to Dave's point, I think the front line of defense is education and making sure that all of our team members know the risks and what they should be looking out for. In particular to, these business email compromises, you need to be diligent about looking at the email that's coming in, look for misspellings within the email. I mean, that's one of the common ones, common things you see is sometimes these are being originated from foreign bad actors. But just overall due diligence, not clicking links if you don't know who the sender is, right? Even if the email looks like it might be legitimate, making sure you're looking over that email with a fine-tooth comb. As it relates to kind of banking protection, and we've just got to make sure that people understand banks aren't going to ask you for your credentials, right? And so that's one of the key things from an education perspective is if you get a phone call or you get an email pop-up that appears to be from your financial institution, know that it's not the financial institution that's going to ask you for that kind of information. So,
I mean, to that point, literally, while we were standing here, I got a phone call from Fifth Third Bank. I mean, I should probably never answer a phone call like that, right? You're supposed to say, not from Fifth Third Bank.
Only answer the PNC.
That's right.
I wouldn't say never answer them because, there are fraud protections, right, where there are outbound texts or calls. Like I have security triggers set up for my account and for just different alerts, right? And I do get pushed messages, hey, is this a valid transaction? And so, what I would suggest is calling the phone number that for the actual customer service number rather than calling numbers that are sent to you or responding to emails that are sent to you.
Has anybody been able to break the two-factor authentication protections? So Dave, talk about that. Because I feel completely safe doing the two-factor, but you're telling me I'm not.
Well, so I'm going to tell you, one of the best things you can do for yourself is use two-factor, multi-factor authentication, two-step verification, whatever it's called. But as Todd mentioned, yeah, there are ways they can work around it. Unfortunately, the bad actors are usually very creative, very devious, and in many cases making enormous amounts of money and out of reach of guys like this, right? So there's no way to prosecute them. So there's really no disincentive. Yeah, it's not necessarily easy to get around multi-factor authentication. And when you talk to nerds like me, you might hear the term phish-resistant MFA, like a YubiKey. I have a funny story I can tell you all afterwards if anyone wants to listen to it about how I showed up without the key. I needed to unlock the computer. But anyway, yeah, it's not foolproof. There's nothing foolproof like Mick said, but you can make yourself a more difficult target. And my answer to your other question, like what can you do, is sort of three-pronged. A, you need to create a culture of security in your organization, and you need to tell people it's okay to question the email they got from their boss or the voicemail they got from their boss. Now, thanks to AI voice cloning now, which is a very, very real thing, you may have a voicemail from your boss saying, hey, I authorized this transfer that's completely bogus. Who here has a voicemail system with your voice on it? I should see a lot of hands go up, right? Probably everyone in the room. What would stop me from calling your phone, recording your voice from your voicemail, and then feeding it into one of these AI models and cloning your voice? And the answer is nothing. And I'm curious to hear Todd's take on this. I don't think there's any answer for that. But create a culture of security. Tell people they should question anything that seems unusual. Then continuous education and awareness. There's tons of low-cost and free resources available. You don't even have to put up with a nut like me telling you this stuff. There's all kinds of great resources out there. And then it's also, implementing the right kind of tools. Technological solutions will not get you there, but when you couple it with all these other things, you can make yourself a much more difficult target, and in most cases, they'll move on to a softer target. But yeah, unfortunately, MFA is not foolproof. It's definitely you will be way more secure if you have it, and anywhere from text all the way up to one of these security keys will only make you and your organization that much more secure. But unfortunately, they're making lots of money. I mean, there are whole teams of people, right, in foreign countries that have help desks. When you get ransomware and you say, I don't know how to convert money to Bitcoin, you can call their help desk number and they will walk you through it. Am I lying, Todd?
No, it's very accurate.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, it's hard for people to believe this until it happens to them, unfortunately. But again, I'm glad to be here with Todd because he can tell you they're seeing this stuff.
So let's go to your questions. Yes.
Hey, Doug, real quick though, in terms of something else that businesses can do is, in terms of the banking software that they're utilizing, one of the suggestions we have is really to have a dedicated computer for just that dealing with your financial institutions, making your transfers. So that's one way to try to build a little bit of a wall between, the laptop or the PC that somebody can click on a link and have something install. Just a suggestion is to have a separate PC.
Thank you so much for being here, and I have like 1,000 questions, but I'm going to try to stick to like 2, maybe. First of all, with AI actually, or the data that's already been collected on most of us, the internet seems to know us better than we know ourselves. And it wouldn't be a hard stretch to find out where my parents got married or what my first car was or things like that with the two-factor authentication. But more concerning to me is that I feel like I'm giving out my social security number a lot. The dentist needs it, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what effect that has on my security. And the other question, and some of you may have wondered about this too, when you talk about something and then suddenly you get these push notifications and you're like, wait, we were just talking about that at dinner, or I stood too long in front of that at the grocery store and now I'm getting all these ads. How does that happen? And thank you.
So, first question
I'd
is
like to say I have an answer because it happens to me all the time, and I'm like, what? I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, I mean, obviously there's some sort of system that you've approved that these applications you have installed on your phone, you've given them access to certain, microphone options that allow them to pick up these words that you're saying in a conversation and then serve you an advertisement for it shortly after. That's a great question. I'm not saying, Amazon's always listening to you, but I, had an Echo in my house at one point in time, and I know for sure that Echo was listening to what I had on the television, and then I'd pull up my phone, and through that means it was like, oh, he's watching this commercial, we know it's playing on this channel, which means he's watching this channel, and he probably, has these interests, and then I was being served advertisement related to those things. I mean, it's just, that's how it is now, and I know it's scary, and I think that, some technology or giants out there are realizing we don't necessarily appreciate that, and there's some element of trying to, rein that in, because, how close are some of these applications to being TikTok at this point? And it's scary. Sorry.
Dave.
Best use for an Amazon Echo or any of those smart assistants is for the BBB skeet shooting. You take them out and use those as clay pigeons. That's the best use for those kind of things. I've never seen any credible evidence that any of these companies are actually listening to you, but ask yourself this question. How can your Siri or your Amazon or whatever work if it's not listening to you? You have to engage it by saying, hey, Siri or whatever. So doesn't it have to be listening to you? So then the question is, and by the way, Amazon, can't stand Amazon either, recently got hit with roughly 31 million in fines because of Ring doorbells and their so-called, smart devices we're talking about here. If you don't know, your Ring doorbell can hear you up to 25 feet away, by the way, so it might be listening to whatever you're saying to your neighbor out in the front yard. Anyone want to venture a guess on how many smart devices I have? 0. 0 would be the right number. Again, people have researched these things and they claim they're not actually listening to you, but they have to be to an extent. The question is, how much is recorded, where does it go, who has access to it, that sort of thing. And there's plenty of credible research out there saying the way that they know these things about you, because they're not listening to you, is because Facebook, Google, Amazon, it's all a big cabal. Data is being collected about you everywhere you go all the time. You visit the Inquirer website, stuff's going to Facebook. The lady that stood up and asked the question, there is such an enormous profile about most all of us out there now. They know what you're thinking before you know. And I'm not even saying that's necessarily bad, it just is. So my argument is limit your digital footprint as much as possible and, turn off the microphones and speakers, or better yet, take them to the BBB sporting clay outing and shoot them.
To Nancy's first question, though, there's really no way for us not to be able to engage our Social Security numbers the way that we are being required to, right?
No way to do what with the Social Security?
Let's go on to the next question. So.
Was it no way to protect your Social Security numbers? I mean, look, so many companies have that information, right? And yeah, chances are they're gonna be hacked at some point. And I know there's been so many different notices that I've gotten with the different organizations that I've provided information telling me they've been hacked. So, yeah, I think Todd mentioned earlier, there were some identity protection softwares out there that you can subscribe to try to make sure you're notified when your information is exposed. But I don't know how you can prevent it from happening.
Okay, so I used to work for Macy's.com, and while I was not directly involved with the fraud department, I did have some contact with them. It seemed like we were under multiple attacks, multiple times a day from all over the world. So my question is, who are these chuckle butts? What's your batting average in shutting them down and locking them up?
What a great question for me to sit up here and answer. It depends. That's the government standard response to a question like that, but it depends on where they're located and our ability to identify them quickly, fast, efficiently, quickly, and make sure that they're somewhere that either we can work with that country to extradite them, or we can somehow talk to them and get them to travel somewhere that we're able to extradite them. Now, those aren't always the case. And a lot of times when we see something like that, let's say hypothetically speaking, Macy's is being DDoSed, a direct denial of service, meaning that your website is being flooded by a lot of computers around the world saying, "Hey Macy's, what's up?" or just trying to make a connection to the website. And there are threat actors out there. I just got an email from U.S. Bank last night asking me about a recent threat from an anonymous group that was threatening to do something similar to the financial institutions of the Western world. And what they do, and what that particular anonymous group is they're employing the assistance of several other groups of bad guys that have these infrastructures, these botnets, these collection of compromised computers that will talk to Macy's at the click of a button. And so when you have, in today's day and age, when you have something like this occur to a major retail company and they're like saying, "We got DDoS," in reality, it's probably one person taking credit, but if we peel back a layer, they've gotten assistance from maybe 5 other groups of bad guys, and the FBI might get lucky and identify names, addresses of 2 of those in countries that we are able to work with those law enforcement entities, and in some cases we have to hope that their presence there has affected that country as well in order to get them to assist in an arrest, have them come back and stand trial and serve jail time. It's difficult. Really quick, the other options we have is to take down the infrastructure. So we will do that. I know you're hoping that there's some ability for us to get these people, but in other instances, the best we can do is to take down that collection of compromised computers that are hitting Macy's, and that's all we can do because these people are somewhere we can't reach.
Under the rules of Rotary International, I have to stop you. so we have come to the end. So I'm positive that these 3 folks would be happy to answer any specific questions that you all have, and on behalf of Rotary, we very much appreciate you coming and speaking to us. We'll be making a donation to Rotary International's polio ending eradication plans, in your honor. And again, let's give these guys a big round of applause for attending today. Charles, don't forget to give Emil his pin. Excellent, thank you very much. Next week, we are not meeting here at the Hall of Mirrors. We are meeting at the Phoenix with a very interesting program by gentlemen named Payne and Coleman, who are going to be talking about the characters of Cincinnati. Do not miss that program, and we very much will be back here for the changing of the guard, where Steve King gets to thank all of you for the phenomenal year that you have provided him, and I'll say a few words about the coming year. Have a great day. Do service above self every single minute of the day. Yes, Sarah? Thank you. RSVPs for next week's program are not due on Monday. They are due tomorrow at 4 p.m. You have an email already for that. See ya. Have a great day.